Welcome to the original International Teacher Podcast with hosts in 4 different time zones, Greg, Darian, Kent, JP, and Hannah, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best kept secret in education. You got it, international teaching. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the International Teacher Podcast. This is Greg, the single guy, reporting, and JP Mint is with me. How are you doing, JP?
Hey, good morning from Mexico.
Excellent. And now my voice is straight on. I'm looking straight at the camera, and I am looking right now at Marion. Let's go for Marion. He's Dutch, and I'm close. It's not Marion. How do you say it again? I'm sorry.
As long as you don't say Marion.
Well, you got it stuck in my head now.
Think
from
merengue
Netherlands, go ahead and introduce
Marijn.
yourself. Go ahead.
Marijn Bergsma.
My name is Marijn. And I guess in international spheres, I would say Marijn Bergsma.
Yeah, I'll have to edit that out. Go ahead. I am so sorry.
You never edit those out. What are you kidding me? You never edit those out.
Oh my God.
This is awesome. This is a perfect storm episode.
This is terrible. I know, right? Well, I have a choice. I can either restart the thing or we can just go right through it. And go ahead.
I think we just go with it because this is typical. Marijn, can you tell us a little bit about your international journey?
Man, yeah, I'm super happy to share about that. First of all, thanks for having me and for trying to say my name mostly correct. I think that's the first thing. I'm Dutch, so yes. I'm from the Netherlands, and I have 3 brothers, and we grew up here. And when I was 10 years old, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and this is in the mid '90s. And back then, for us, the U.S. was this big, amazing place to go to with blue jeans and cool stuff. And I know it sounds like the 60s now, but that's what it was like, at least to us in Europe in the 90s. And, with the name thing, my first day at school there, my name was read on the list, but my actual first name is Hendrik. And the kids giggled and laughed, and then I felt shame. And, well, that's the start of my name in the international world, I guess. So I grew up in the US, and then later in Japan. When I was 13, we moved to Yokohama in Japan, which was a brilliant time. Definitely even harder to pronounce my name there. And I mean, that's sort of the start of my international journey. And since then, I've been in and out of different places. I've lived in 5 continents, just kind of moved about a lot. And now I'm quite happily settled in Haarlem in the Netherlands. So in Haarlem, the original Haarlem. Mm-hmm. And, kind of have that itch to get back overseas.
Tell our listeners what New York used to be called.
Exactly.
New Amsterdam.
Yeah, excuse me.
Yeah, so that's why Haarlem, I grew up knowing that little tidbit before I went to New York, and I was like, oh, this was New Amsterdam.
I'm American. I don't know that, to tell you the truth. I have not learned that in my geography courses or, elementary school faded away for some reason. I learned that things about Kansas and everything, but no, I didn't that. We're beginning into your journey, and you're born into a family that's traveled a lot. And that sets the stage. You're in the Netherlands right now feeling like you need to get out. So what's going on right now with you? Tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, that itch is always there. It's a restlessness kind of to, if you're confined to one room in your home, you kind of feel like going into the kitchen sometimes or getting into the living room. If you're just in your bedroom all day, that's what it feels like sometimes. So I think that's a benefit in a way, but also a drawback of the international life. From my parents' side of things, one brother lives in Southeast Asia. I've lived in New Zealand and across Africa. Another brother's lived in Barcelona and Sydney. And then another brother lived in Peru. So there's the cool thing about traveling together. And then you forget that when you're older and you want to settle down, your kids kind of keep that bug. So I've had that bug for a while. That restlessness. And, I kind of worked with that through my profession. So for 15 years, I was working either as an entrepreneur, as an investor, or as someone in between an entrepreneur and investor, helping entrepreneurs get sort of ready to grow. and helping investors find the right places to put their money. But my playing field, or where I was active, was mostly in sub-Saharan Africa. So we lived before we had kids in Tanzania. So the safari thing definitely a huge
That's a
part
big
in
draw.
that. But we lived in Tanzania prior to having kids. But in 2019, in the start of 2019, we moved to Rwanda with 3 kids. So we had 3 kids under age 6.
Wow.
We sold our house in the Netherlands and moved all of our stuff down there in order to set up a company, a savings company. And the reason I share that is because a year and a half later, we moved back. And that's a long story, but we moved back during COVID. And a lot of stuff happened, and we had to resettle back in the Netherlands. And then we thought, okay, this might have been a little bit too much with the kids and selling a house and then moving abroad. Our stuff had hardly arrived in Rwanda, or we had to ship it back again. So we've stuck around here since COVID. And what brought me back into the international sort of world, and I've been working with different places in Africa, like different countries in Africa, working in them for the past years. But what I really want to do is work more with kids, my kids, but also other kids who are, on the one hand, showing gifted behavior. So I don't think we've mentioned that, but I have 3 kids that are all intellectually gifted in a way, but also struggle at school in different ways, whether it's social, emotional, or, not having the executive functions, needing more scaffolding, that kind of stuff. And I'm a very present father. That became a passion of mine to work with them. And then I thought, man, this is awesome. I want to get into this line of work. And then I pushed that down and said, no, take the safe route. Don't be courageous. Don't be stupid. Don't try to do something completely new at age 42. You're gonna
with 3
have
kids
no income.
to support.
You're gonna be 3 kids. Yeah. And then I burnt out at the job I was at, and there were several reasons for that. But and I'm happy to get into those. I just don't want to make the story too long. But that burnout for me was a sign, like, okay, I can recover and get back to the same shit every day, or I can recover and do exactly what's burning inside of me that I want to work on.
Can I ask you real quick about your wife? Since we're talking about family, is she also Dutch?
You imagine that very very well. She's Portuguese, and she grew up in international schools as well. So there's
so 2 TCKs come together, and then you have 3 kids, and you're ready to go out into the field after some burnout. Wow, this is developing into a wonderful story. All right, continue. Go ahead.
Well, I would like to ask about, what did your parents do that moved you around? Because it seemed to me like you said you moved around a lot as a child.
Well, we moved to the U.S. and to Japan, so that's two places. And my dad was in banking and investment management, and my mother was a teacher, so she was an educator, and she was not formally allowed to work in the places we lived. So she gave Dutch class at school and was very involved in that sense. So it's almost like she was part of the school.
That's familiar. Yes. That happens a lot overseas, and you'll see it. If you get into this, when you get into this, you'll see a lot of the spouses that have degrees, that have backgrounds, or just not doing something, they might add on to the school like that. Wow. But wow. TCKs.
And so you were off to Japan. How long were you in Japan as a child?
3 years. So I was there from when I was 13 until when I was 16. And that was a wonderful place to be at that time. We're talking about late 90s. And it was just a great place, a wonderful school, great community. It feels like everybody knew each other. All the teachers were sort of also part of your life outside of school. A lot of kids had parents that were teaching. So it felt very sort of like just a place you want to be. And I think, when I talk to old friends, they say the same, like, it was, you can capture that magic. What do you call it? Magic in a bottle or whatever. And yeah, it was just a special time. So that was great. But then that made moving back to the Netherlands for the last 2 years of high school very difficult, because you go
Let's
from
talk
this
a little bit about
place.
That transition. This is home, but it doesn't feel like home.
Yeah, I mean, it's where I was born, right? And it's, I think, where my roots are, but it doesn't have to be the place that's right for me at every time in my life. I think, that changes. Right now, it's great with our kids, because my 9-year-old can grab her bike and just go off and do whatever she wants. My 13-year-old grabs his bike, goes to a friend's house, they bike to a lake and they go swimming. It's very safe and easy in that sense.
Mm.
But safe and easy is also usually kind of boring if you kind
Some of us don't want to say that, right?
Like, I could see you hesitating. I'm gonna say it. Boring. Yeah.
For us, right? For them, not. It's a great platform to grow from. But it's very, it's very, the area we live in the Netherlands is also not extremely diverse. It's a wonderful place to live in terms of the nature that's around us, but it's not the real world,
it's not like being in Rwanda or something where you are a completely different color than the majority of the people surrounding you, which a friend of mine just went to Nairobi for the first time. He is Canadian, Caucasian, and he's married to a Southeast Asian woman. So their family's very mixed already. I said, dude, when you get off the plane in Nairobi, you're going to realize how really white you are and how beautiful the people are there of all different ebony colors. It's absolutely amazing. And that's what Africa taught me. That was years ago. Your kids it sounds like they have a rich experience already. And it sounds like you're itching. You got that itch to go back out again.
Yeah, for sure. It's something that's always pulling at us. And I think because of my experience at international schools as a student, first of all, I was in the right place for us. So I really feel like I have great friends I was able to develop. On the other hand, we were also with my 3 brothers and I and my parents, and felt very close. You don't have a lot of other obligations outside of, whatever you're doing with your family or schools. We don't have to go to an aunt's birthday party. We don't have to go to all the things you don't really want to go to. So you feel very close and you're very reliant on each other. I think that makes a beautiful sort of, I'm not saying this for everybody, but for us, there was an opportunity to really be together and, bond as a family, which I love with my kids as well. And sure, we do that here, but that kind of sense of going out on an adventure together and not knowing what the day is going to bring, kind of being able to not take everything so seriously, knowing that stuff will pass. That's the stuff that you get, in Rwanda. I think I'd never be angry that the bus was late. And then here, if the train is a minute late, you're like, well, what the hell's going on? They do anything
I feel
right?
the same way. Anywhere around the world, I'm fine with other things happening. But if I don't get good customer service when I go back home, or someone's on the phone and I go back home, I don't expect it. I expect the opposite. So it makes it double worse. And I expect there to be some kind of a customer service is what we, usually in the past we've been known for. But I think it's disappearing. When I go back, I get super frustrated, just like you mentioned. I have never expected it overseas. In fact, I have a very low bar, very low expectations, because I know that something exciting might happen. I might be pleasantly surprised and the food might show up, right? But yeah, I hear you. I totally empathize with what you're saying, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do too. One more comment. I wanted to say it's interesting to hear through your eyes what it's like to be one of several brothers and a family overseas, because our other co-host, Matt, the family guy, and Darian is our other family guy. They each have 3 plus kids. Darian has 3 kids and Matt has 4, and they have grown up overseas in different countries. It's interesting to hear you as an adult and as a father yourself share that feeling with us, because I can see it happening with Matt's kids, for example. He's really close to me, and seeing those boys grow up overseas. I think the one thing I was going to ask you is, it sounds like whether intentional or unintentional, you've created some roots back at home in the Netherlands. And that's how Matt and Stacy did that with their kids. They always had a place to go back home because they missed all the aunt birthdays. They missed the aunts and uncles and grandpa and grandma. But during the summertime, they would try and maybe travel a little bit on the way, but then they'd go back home for a while and set down those roots for the kids. So it sounds like that's what you've done in Netherlands. Do you also go back to Portugal and see your wife's family at all for grandpa and grandma? Or?
Yeah, for sure. We try to go there a couple times a year. It's about a 3-hour flight from here, so it's not too bad. Gets a bit pricey with 3 kids, but we try to get there. And then what's really nice about my wife's family is that her brother and sister, well, her sister lives in Portugal, but her brother, for the past, I've been with her for 18 years. For 18 years, every summer he's been in Portugal, and they have this beautiful house with room for everybody, and there's a swimming pool. So summers are kind of expected to be spent, August in Portugal, and there's a lot of, sort of room for the kids. And I think that for my wife especially, that's great to keep that connection with Portugal as well, because like you say, I think I do have roots. I think with my younger brother, much less so. So there's like a difference as well in that we did come back every summer. I've lived in Holland definitely a lot longer than he has, but he was never able to quite settle back in. He didn't want to be in that straight, kind of the system here. The system here is quite straightforward. You can be, kind of just daydreaming through life. And he wanted more adventure out of it. And I think for some people it's just personal choice, but it's also, if you don't have your roots or you don't have anything to come back to, like what's going to keep you in one place?
It's a big puzzle.
Something you mentioned earlier was, that adventure every time you leave the house, and then it kind of brings you together as a family as you're trying to figure things out. And I was thinking about the learning that happens when we're not in our own country and maybe even not in our own language. Every time we step foot out our door, we don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be some interaction where we have to quickly, struggle with the language or figure something out. And the learning is constant. I think our brains get wired when we live overseas. We get wired for that hit of dopamine or whatever it is, adrenaline, maybe adrenaline more. we get addicted to that, so that when we go home and everything feels normal, but it doesn't feel normal, I think our brains are kind of reacting to that. Does that sound something familiar?
100%. Yeah. I think once you're, like one of the keys of learning is engagement or the ability to be curious. If you're abroad in a place you don't know so well yet, you have to come in more humble. You have to come in more open. You have to be more curious. You have to pay attention to what's going on. And that can be like for many reasons. It can just be awesome to see if you're in Nairobi, for example, to see a local bus come by and just to see the colors and the paintings and the stuff that's going on, and the fact that there's a door hanging off. That stuff you won't see when you're back home probably, and that's going to trigger you. So it's much more your attention is much more focused on where you are, I think. So yeah, I fully agree. I think that's, and then I think what also, when you spend a couple of years here and a couple of years there, it also feels like life is kind of longer because you have these pockets of experience. Whereas maybe if you stay in the same place for 10 years, that kind of bleeds together. So I think that's also such a value to going abroad or living in different places, let's say, because it doesn't have to be abroad. I think if you're from Green Bay and you go live in Arizona, that's also just an exciting kind of change of scenery and things you can do. Or
yeah, but people don't travel that much from my hometown, and I think it's harder for them to come up with chapters of their life. Like, I think it'll be more and more like markers of when their children were at different stages, and of course, that's going to be any family. But I guess my point is the traveling, like you're saying, when you travel from place to place and you're that rolling stone, those are automatic chapters. That was when we lived in this country. That's when we lived in this country. Yeah. It's very easy for us to categorize our memories based on where we were at the time. And you grew up very much like that and decide, oh, I remember my Japanese times and I remember my times in the U.S. and not following the Packers as much as the Atlanta Falcons or something, or going to Canada. For me, it's very much kept my life in chapters instead of just by a timeline of age and what happened when I was at a certain age. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I agree too that it's very easy to remember a date and then attach that to a country. So I have all my dates, memorized for years. And I know if somebody, well, for example, I was just watching something on TV about news in 2003, and I was like, why didn't I hear about this? And then I think, oh, I was in Istanbul and I didn't have live TV. I was just watching, like YouTube and whatever TV shows were on, but I didn't have access to news or to to live TV as such that we'd have in Canada. So I thought, oh, that's why I'd never heard of this story.
Yeah.
So we have those. I like that idea, Greg. Those chapters, sort of the book of Tanzania, the book
it's
of
so
Japan.
easy to write you need to write a book, you know that for sure, because if you haven't written one yet, you have a lot of experiences, and I've been going through these book stages. But for an international person to write chapters and anecdotes, it's very simple to it writes itself. But I've been keeping a notebook. I've been keeping newsletters for the past 25 years to draw upon and use as notes for later. So I urge anybody out there that's listening, that's following a life that's so exciting like we are, the three of us, just keep notes. You might want to write it down as a book someday, right? I have a question though. How about your kids? Let's talk a little bit about your three kiddos. Talk about going from school to school and going back to Netherlands. Tell me a little bit about what school life has been like that as a parent to watch your kids go through this.
Yeah. So my kids, I guess, so my three kids are 13, 10, and 9, two boys and then a girl. So they're kind of in the easy years, right between being really young
Are
and
there such
being
a thing?
teenagers. So I mean, the easier years, I guess. Maybe that's the chapter. Yeah, it's not a great chapter.
Preteens, post,
Yeah,
might kill themselves
The
doing
tweens.
something wrong.
yeah, exactly. So they're in sort of that sweet spot. No, but we moved. So we moved back from Rwanda when the eldest was in second grade. So he was trying to think if he was done. No, we moved back from Rwanda in the middle, like the start of COVID, right at the boom, March 16th. We flew to Holland, and he was homeschooled for a while, and then we dropped him in a Dutch school. So we had to find a new place to live, and he and his brother and sister went to a Dutch school. And I mean, I think the Dutch school, it's across the street, it's super close, it's nice kids, nice parents. But he really struggled for a lot of reasons. One is he was in a class of sort of alpha males and very kind of harsh environment, very different from international school, sort of. He had a good friend that was from a international school in Uganda that felt the same way and eventually left school, left the Dutch school. So it was very like kind of tough environment. And I would say that for him, he's intellectually very high. He's very highly gifted. Let's put it that way. I don't really like the word gifted, but it's the space I work, so I have to say it. But he's intellectually very capable, which made it very hard for him to kind of connect with other kids because he just had different interests. He sees things very literally. In class, he was disturbing others because he kind of got what was being explained, instructed already from the jump. So that wasn't easy for him to really settle in and make friends and do stuff like that. Only through sports, I guess, he was able to do that because he was quite a good soccer player. So he is a soccer kid. And why do I say that is because at the end of fourth grade, our primary school runs until sixth grade. At the end of fourth grade, during a meeting with his teacher, with me, my son, and the teacher there, the teacher said, yeah, well, you speak to my kid, you speak 3 languages fluently. What more can we teach you? So the teacher was basically saying, hey, you've got 2 years here, but yeah, you can just pick your nose for 2 years. So that was awful. And that was around the time that we figured out that he was quite highly gifted. And, you start reading, you start talking to specialists, you start talking to teachers, and they go, yeah, it's really important to, learn how to learn. They're not doing anything difficult. So you got to really challenge them and blah, blah, blah. So I started working with him after school immediately. On Wednesday afternoons, Wednesday, they have a half day. So Wednesday afternoons, we started working on a project. And I asked him, what do you want to know? And he said, can you time travel? And we basically said, all right, we're putting 6 weeks aside. Week 1 is going to be, are we asking the right questions? Can you time travel? Yeah, we're traveling in time right now. So, okay, so can you travel back in time? Right? And then we every week we did research, but it was more about the process, right? So planning, structuring your work, the executive functions, right? So, week 1, we kind of went to the library and we already figured out that, whatever the theory was on time travel. And we're like, okay, so what do we do now if we think we know already? What do we check online? We're going to go to a university, technical university, and interview people. We're going to watch movies. Let's see what's in pop culture. So we watched Back to the Future, stuff like that. And I love doing that work with him. You know, it's not work. I'm a dad, so it's just, I love being a dad to him there. But I also noticed that it was changing things a little bit for him at school, and he was getting extra support at school as well at that time. And we put him in like an external Friday afternoon class, like an enrichment class. And the reason I say all that is because the Dutch school system is based, you know, on the kind of middle or the 80% that will get by pretty well, right? So if you have a, I don't know, I don't want to really talk
The
about
outliers, you could
like
say, like the
distribution.
outliers.
You are, yeah, because what I don't like about the distribution is that outliers, then, you know, people start talking about, yeah, you know, people that have difficult, people that have it easy. It's like, that's not really what it is, right? Like, I think
so a lot of times
a lot of
the kids that suffer, in my opinion, there's a lot of kids that suffer because they're ahead of the pack. They are at an upper percentage of understanding, and they're not as hard as an elementary teacher. If you have 30, 40 kids in the class, to make sure that the top flyers, if you want to call them that, we can simply call them top flyers. The kids that are top flyers of what you're teaching that need more, they get shoved off to the side a lot of times, and not necessarily due to neglect of the teacher, but they're spending so much time on the lower end and they're being tugged at from all different directions, right? So as a homeroom teacher, I would see the kids that need so much support and emotional support and guidance and learning, and they're very low on the scale of percentage of understanding the core subjects, that you spend so much time with them, and then you can rely on a couple of the top flyers and maybe they'll help out. However, that being said, for the average teacher, what's failing is that the kids that are sitting there that have already understood your expectation, that have already understood the lesson, that want more, are not getting it. And I think that is something that as a seasoned teacher, you have to choose to go after. And that's a really difficult thing unless you've had special training. On the other hand, even though I haven't had special training, for example, I always tried to feed the upper level kids with extras. I always had an extra bag of tricks, of questions, of what do we? I can't remember what I call it.
Usually
Extensions.
extension.
Yeah, extensions and
Extension
higher challenges and extensions for anything I taught in the homeroom, and it carried off. And I do that now in specialists also. However, it's not done enough, and I can hear that your son is missing that in school, because as a parent, if the child is lucky, their parent has the time to move them forward. And what you're doing is, I wish I could talk to every parent and have them listen to you on the episode. Say, hey, here's time you need to spend with your child, because what you're talking about is phenomenal. I love the fact
because you're
that
keeping him engaged in the education process, because otherwise he could completely turn off and completely disengage and say, I'm not interested in learning because it's boring.
Yeah. Greg, thank you for the kind words, first of all, because I wish every parent would hear this, because I talk to school leaders, talk to teachers, and I want to stress that, first of all, I don't think this is a teacher problem, right? It's a system problem. There's just not enough time. There's triage. You know, you gotta go where you need it, and especially for gifted girls. So this is another thing that I feel very strongly about. Girls that are gifted, intellectually gifted, they are the model students. They put their head down, they do the work, they write neatly, they're polite. Their behavior doesn't really kind of mess up the classroom dynamic. Boys, like myself, when I was younger, I became a class clown because I was bored. I'm fine. I get it. So I'm going to just misbehave, kind of talk to girls, and so that's not, that's a system problem, that these girls aren't being seen, for example. That's one. And then secondly, what I feel very strongly about is exactly what you just said, Greg, is that the parents, it's not a, put your kid in school thing and have the school solve it, because it's not a solvable thing. It's complex. It's not.
But it is. That's what they feel it is. A lot feel it is. Yeah. But I agree with you. It's not. It's a system. Yeah. It's a systematic thing. And it's something that we could all use more. I hate to say we need more training, right, JP? But it's something that we need to be
it's
reawakened.
Also the factory example. You know, we take 40 kids or 30 kids, we plump them into a classroom based on what? Based on their birthday. And this is not necessarily, you know, everyone grows at different rates. You've got tall kids, little kids physically in the same class, but then you also have high flyers and the kids that are struggling all mixed in with the same. So it's just seems so arbitrary. Now, I was very lucky. I'm trying to relate to what you're saying as a homeroom teacher, Greg, because I was very lucky that in most of my situation as a French teacher, kids were streamed. Now, they were still age level, but it was like if we had 60 grade 6 students, we split them into ability for French. So then we could concentrate on those kids that needed more help. They were in one class, and the high flyers, they were in another class. So I often had streamed classes. So I was lucky in that sense. But the factory model of education makes it very difficult to stream for math, then stream for science, then stream for English, then stream. You would need to have either a huge school to be able to play with those different abilities, or you would have a very small school and you would have multi ages, you know, so multiple ages in a classroom. It doesn't matter how old you are, it's where you're at and bringing you forward.
Well, it's difficult because no matter what, even if you stream the kids, you're still going to have a couple of the gifted and talented, the GT, that are going to go through the system that are not going to get that from the school. Even if we might have a few courses that are gifted and talented. There might be a math stream that goes up, and yet they might be even beyond that. And I tell you what, it sounds like the parents are the only answer for that. And we can try as a teacher to make sure that we ask questions. And I think that's the most important thing, and not to give that answer that you heard. The fact that that teacher said, oh, well, they're meeting the expectation. That's great. We don't have to worry about them. I worry more than anything. And I think that happened after having one student that was gifted and knowing that I only found out because they opened up to me and I had to start feeding them more. And that was a conversation I had with one of my students in a classroom, one-on-one, not even the parents. The kid just said to me, Mister, you know, I get this already. I said, what can I do to help you? And he said, I just need more, I need more. I need to be challenged. And I said, all right, here we go. We're going to pull out that next grade level. We're going to pull out, see how far you can go. Yeah. And that was a conversation with the parents after that. And it was a lot of work on the teacher. But I tell you what, it sounds like you're doing the right thing with your kids if you're doing these projects to find out about time travel. I want to know more about the time travel. All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at International Teacher Podcast, our handle.
All right, and thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners, and though we're not monetized, we are here for you, and we would like to thank all of you for listening. So let's get back to the show.
Did he ever come to a solution or a resolution?
I think the answer was yes, but it's complicated. I don't recall the exact.
That's a future answer, JP.
Yeah. I think maybe if I can give one more example of this, where I don't remember how to do it, but I remember the process, right? Because I think that's what it really is. My eldest had like 4 or 5 Rubik's cubes in his room, right? So he's a smart kid, so people give him a Rubik's cube. He never solved them. They're just sitting there on the sort of on the windowsill or wherever. And I asked him, I was like, he's like 9, I think. And I said, hey, dude, do you want to solve your Rubik's Cube? He's like, yeah, but I don't know how. It's like, well, there's YouTube. We just look up a video and we'll just do it until we're done. And then, we sat down, 2 Rubik's Cubes, 1 good YouTube video. And an hour later, we could both solve it without looking at whatever. Right. And it was a great YouTube video. I'm happy to share it if you have show notes because it was so
peel
cool.
the stickers.
Yeah, we take it apart. But we sat down and we completed it. And then, couple hours later, he was doing it within 35 seconds. That's where he takes it.
Yeah.
But what we did was reflect. And I said, I won't say his name, but Joe, why were you able to do it now? And, they've been sitting in your room for like 5 years, for as long as you can remember. Why were you able to do it now? And he came up with 3 things. And one was like, I knew it could be done. 2, I knew we wouldn't stop until we were done. And 3, because we did it together. So that was very important to him for understanding how he learns. And in the months after that, I think I've stopped doing that. But in the months after that, when something didn't work well, we talk about, hey, remember the Rubik's Cube? What do you need right now? And it gave him some language to something that he would have otherwise never asked, because that's another thing. Maybe it's my side of the family, or it's just I don't know if it's all gifted kids, but they don't want to ask for help. My kids don't want to ask for help. They can do it themselves. Otherwise, what if?
However, he needed that nudge. He said it himself. He did it together with you. And sometimes the gifted, talented, they're like, well, it's just sitting there, and I never really put the floodlight on there, put the flashlight, or put the microscope to that problem yet. It's just sitting there. I can do that if I want to. But the fact that you actually targeted that and said, let's try it, was part of it. You have to activate that interest. And I think as a teacher, above all, I think what's great and what you're already showing is what you're naturally doing is you're showing interest, number 1, but number 2 is you're leading them to ask questions. And that's what we're all doing as teachers. We're saying, okay, let's shine that light on this problem and let's think about it first and see what happens. Are you on your way to be officially teaching in an international school now, or is that your goal? Are you going to still stay with something else? What's your future look like, do you think?
Greg, I don't really know. Is my one yes and so right now I do teach an enrichment class at a Dutch public school. So the school that initially said, we can't offer you anything else. I'm helping. I started there as an intern because I'm not, certified to be a teacher yet. And because it was going quite well, I was able to just do it by myself, I guess.
Correct.
I don't know. I don't think anybody from the Dutch inspection is listening to this podcast, so it's fine. But legally, probably not super okay. And beyond that, I've definitely looked into getting my certification because I noticed through this process that I love teaching. I've been a youth basketball coach for a long time. I love it. I love meeting kids where they are, understanding how we can nudge, how we can make small changes that have, bigger impacts. That's what I'm looking at. We're really exploring sort of what does it look like as right now an enrichment teacher? Do I need to be full-time, kind of what does it look like is I guess what I'm saying. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. And I know, I've been speaking to heads of school, international schools, trying to figure out what does it look like at your school? How does this fit into your inclusion? How does this fit into your, kind of learning support? Is it, I wouldn't be able to teach math all day, all week, right? But I'd be happy to teach kids about, how do you turn your curiosity into action? How do you turn that action into learning, right? Like that's where
there's a long journey involved in this. Teacher certification it's the bare bone. It's the first hurdle for anybody in international education because they don't just pick up people because they're interesting. And you hit the nail on the head. And you know what? It doesn't matter what age you are. It does. But I'm just saying, don't be afraid to jump off the deep end and go for something brand new. I'm almost 57. I'll be 57 in a couple days. And I feel like I'm 42. I'm obviously not 42. right? I mean, we have the same hairstyle and everything, but but I tell you what, I think that I'm hoping at some point, no matter what, your kids are lucky to have you, your own flesh and blood. They're lucky to have you as an interested father, because no matter what's going to happen, whatever school they end up going to in whatever country, it sounds like you are going to make sure that they are challenged and their ideas are met with more ideas, which is what they need. And that's, for them, they're very lucky. I'll say you that right away, because I've talked to so many parents in my career, and so many parents that just don't have time, or they're not aware of their kids. They think
or they
they're
don't
fine.
make time. They have
or
time, they don't make
yes.
time. Yeah.
Right.
Marijn, can you tell us a little bit about that teaching journey? Are you thinking like Dutch certificate? Are you thinking PGCE from the UK? Are you thinking an American certificate? Have you gotten that far into your planning?
Yes, a little bit. So not the Dutch certificate. I would definitely, if I go the full-time teacher route, which is definitely one of the options, that would be international. And I looked at different options. Um, you know, I know there's some options that just get you the certificate, but it doesn't get you quite the experience and the depth and the richness of the education that you need. I want to go in fully, ready. I mean, at least as ready as you can be, right? I think it's,
Yeah.
I doubt you're ready the first time you're in a classroom full of kids, but I think I have some experience. But so I've been looking. I haven't decided on anything yet, but it would be international.
Mm. Yeah, because we're sort of in my wheelhouse, the places that teachers come to me and say, I need certification. I don't have the certificate to go into the classroom. And so um, just being physically close to the UK, but also maybe aligned more with the Dutch system. The PGCE is that 1 year, typically 1 year, and it can be online. You don't need to physically go to the UK, but it would be something that would be looked at as legitimate in the international system, whether that is the American international system or Canadian or British. There's still sort of pods of the curriculum based.
Right.
So I would say, yeah, we had do you remember Greg? We had another Greg Larmouth from University of Sunderland. He came onto the show, and he was talking about he works with certifying international teachers. And so I
They
would
actually have a
recommend
program
reach out
in the UK. Yes.
Yeah, reach out to him at University of Sunderland. I'll send you his information
Okay,
after.
cool.
But
You
yeah,
see me
for
start.
anybody thinking of moving overseas, teaching overseas, they already have a program that
You should
allows
listen to that
international
episode.
teachers.
Yeah, I can't remember what
should, yeah.
episode. We'll have to put that in the show notes, of course. And
Yeah,
send it
but
to
I
you.
mean, you're not the first to find that passion, to want to become a teacher at a later date. I've had clients with we call them second career educators, where they've had a whole career doing one thing, and then they've decided to become an educator. There is a pathway for you. So it's just to get the right people in the same room and chat and be able to see if that works for you.
I did that at
Thanks for that
30.
advice.
Yeah, I was doing other things for many years, and then I went back to school a second time. And at 30, I stepped into a classroom, which is a little bit younger than you are now. But man, I was a lot older than anybody else starting my education program, and it wasn't even for international, right? Because I was like you, I want to go in and I want to know everything first. And yet, once you get into your first day of class, we're all equal. Doesn't matter what kind of an education preparation you had. That's the first day of school. I tell you, that's rough.
I believe that. Yeah. It sounds like I worked with a lot of younger entrepreneurs that would just be kind of out of their first job, kind of 3-4 years into their career, going, "Hey, I'd love to, start a company in Tanzania, for example." Like, what do you suggest? It's like, well, go to Tanzania. Don't sit here and plan anything. Just go and experience it, because you're gonna, whatever plans you made, you're gonna, you know,
Yeah, but you're fearless. You are a seasoned entrepreneur. You have already succeeded and failed in several different instances. That's what makes, I think that's my opinion of entrepreneurs. They're the ones that have, or that when you're starting out, okay, but as you go and you still retain that entrepreneurship, you know what it's like to begin, succeed, fail, begin again, start again, try a new idea, and you just never stop. Even with success, you just never stop. You keep on going. But yeah, that's definitely go to the place. You want to learn French, go somewhere they speak French. You want to be an entrepreneur in a certain place, first go to the place. Please.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I can definitely, when I started at this at the Dutch school here as a enrichment class teacher, there were 21 kids, all quite unique special kids, and I knew that the teacher that was leading it. So I spent a few days with her in class, kind of, seeing how she does things. And then she's like, "Oh, well, I'm sick tomorrow," or she called me and said, "I'm ill tomorrow. Can you just run the class by yourself?"
Whoa!
And all the stuff that comes at you that first day. Like, one of the kids was co-regulating with the teacher, so his emotions were all over the place because she was his kind of rock, right? So I learned that the hard way because I was trying to go, dude, come on, and it wasn't working. I needed to spend a couple of weeks with him. And he knew me, so there was all these challenges. And, I got my daughter and my son in that class. So that's also another thing, is like, they're coming up to me and going, "Hey, Dad," trying to get, and that has meant so much more to me than reading more books about it. You know what I mean? I think that's what you're saying.
Learning through doing. Yeah. Absolutely. Just throwing yourself in the deep end and seeing what comes of it. Another thing that this is kind of reminding me is just yesterday I got an email from a teacher of 20 years who just has spent her first year overseas. And she wrote me and she said, it was tough. It taught me so many things about teaching that I never knew, teaching in the US. And I am struggling. And I told her, I said, listen, when I go back through my chapters and my memory bank of first year in a new school, every one of those first years, I struggled. It was a struggle whether to know what am I teaching, or who am I teaching, or who am I teaching with. Each year of that first year in a new school was always a struggle. It didn't matter how many years experience I had. And so this kind of brings me to this conversation, is like, we can sort of learn through doing, but when you're on your own and it's just you're thrown into the deep end, and you're just learning something new from being independent without that extra help.
Yeah, how great to be able to reach out for help to you and to ask, is this kind of normal? Are these feelings okay? Do I, am I a good fit? It's like,
nice. Yeah, and I told her second year is always better. Second year, excuse me, second year is always better. You come back in, you actually see the first years struggling, and then you can go and be the support for them. And then that just helps, that helps you get confidence as well, because you see, look, my second year is much better than my first.
In the country, you mean? The second year in that station?
Yeah,
in
second
that
year
country,
in that school setting. Mm-hmm.
I've done that about 7 times.
I can imagine how, I did it with, sorry, go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, like, you're not just, when we move to a new country, it's one thing to start a new job. So I was setting up my own company. So at least, no, still difficult, but, at least I didn't have to fit into a new team. But you're moving into a new professional life, but then you're also moving countries. So you're kind of getting used to, okay, how do I pay for my electricity bill here? How do I figure this stuff out? Which taxi drivers can I trust to get my kid to wherever he needs to be if I'm not there? Like, you're figuring out all this stuff. And then I guess at a school, you're dealing with all the internal, like the dynamics, the way that people work together, how stuff is done, what's in the manual, what's actually being done, dealing with 30, 40 kids. That sounds very tough.
Well, the hardest thing is to actually have an interview with somebody and then to commit to that without actually knowing all those things, right? So when I interview for a company, a country, a school, and it's in a different place I've never been before, how do I ask the right questions? And we've been working through that in our podcast also to help out the listeners, but you hit the nail on the head. You may not be an international teacher yet officially, even though you are with your family, but you've traveled and you grew up in the system. So you hit the nail on the head. When we go to a new school, a new contract as an international teacher, we are hitting all of the hurdles at the same time. It's your first year, your first time in the classroom. It's not just the language, the culture, the local customs, the national culture, but the school culture, the school kids and how they act and how all the other teachers have done things. You're looking for a mentor, you're looking for help, and you can go crazy. And some people, it's for some people, it's not for everybody. But you're right, you hit the nail on the head. That's the joy of it. But I tell you what, it's what keeps me in it. And same thing with JP. She wants to say something. You stayed in it because of
I was going to say, Greg, and now imagine you have two boys and a girl. you have 3 kids coming with you
and a wife
and having and well, I'm thinking like she's kind of independent. She can kind of solve the issues of personal and professional and new changes. But those 3 kids, throwing them in the deep end in a new country, in a new language, helping them, fit in, but at the same time stay themselves, so not lose themselves completely in the newness of everything. So that will also be a challenge, but I think you're up for it. It sounds like you look for that kind of challenge in your life. And I look forward to hearing more about your journey
in the
let's
future.
hope we can have another. Yeah, if we can have another episode in a couple of years.
Yeah,
we need to have you back. Talk
travel.
about time travel. We're going to invite you back on the show and tell us in the future about the past.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'll bring my son on. I'm sure he'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think a couple years down the road, we're still going to, Greg and I are riding this until the wheels fall off, right, Greg? So we're still going to be doing ITP. And come back on the show with your son if he's up for it, and then let us know, where did you end up? How did they fit in? How did they work out all the differences and all the similarities of living overseas?
But we're not done yet. We're not
No.
done yet. I still have
we're not done
we
yet.
still have 2 questions for you.
Awesome.
And I know we should talk a whole nother episode about being a father of children overseas and getting them through those challenges, not just you being in the challenge, but with your kids. But I do have 2 questions for you. I'm going to start with one. Do you have any police stories or custom stories that won't get you in trouble?
Yeah.
Dude, okay. Okay, let's start with this one. So yes, I do. And custom story for sure. So we were, when we were about to move to Rwanda, there were 2 kind of certainties. One is we had a donor lined up that would finance a 3-year project, at least starting a project, setting up a company. So that was great. That's one. And 2, the government had said, great, we welcome you. You're setting up we were going to set up a pension company, a micro pension company. So a pension company for anyone who doesn't have formal work. And the reason we were able to do that is because we had a functioning business in Ghana that was similar. So we had set that up. We found funding. We got the okay from the government in Rwanda, and we moved there expecting to have a 2-year visa or a 3-year visa. I don't remember. And then when we got there, immediately called into immigration, called into the central bank, and they said, well, let's give you a 3-month visa, and then we'll see how your business is doing by then. So we were going, well, shit, okay, at least it's 3 months. We'll figure it out. Our stuff is going to get here in 5 months. So, we better be able to, kind of extend it. And I think every 3 months, it just got worse. That conversation where you're sitting with, kind of, I'm not going to talk badly about any of this stuff, because it's just the way the system was working, right? Again, it's like individually, people were great. Just the system was like, hey, don't let just people come in and set up companies. And I sort of agree with the message behind it. I wish we would have known from the start. But then the last time we wanted to extend it, it was February 2020. So that's a good time. I dropped the passports at immigration, And they called me up and they said, yeah, we're not going to extend it. So, well, what's going on? So it took a while. It took a couple of weeks, and ours were expiring. I remember ours were expiring within 2 weeks. So they were like, we're not going to extend them right now, kind of sitting on them. And then 4 weeks later, I said, hey, where's my passport? And they said, well, you've overstayed your visas, all of them. So we had all 5 of us overstayed our visas. And then this is beginning of March 2020. So on March 14th, I think it was a Saturday, or at least whatever that Saturday was, I'm pretty sure it was the 14th, the first confirmed case of COVID came out. And, we got WhatsApp messages because everything goes through WhatsApp.
Or in Rwanda, you mean? Or
in Rwanda, yeah. So we were in Rwanda. We were already kind of being told, hey, stuff is kind of going south everywhere. Let's see how this goes. And on the 14th, I got WhatsApp messages, with pictures of driver's license of, the guy that got COVID, and hey, this is the guy, this is his store. And I was like, okay, shit, this is getting a bit sketchy. I have 3 kids, they have asthma. There's 20, I think there were 20 IC beds in the country. So we're like, hey, maybe we should go. So we booked flights for Monday, the 16th of March, but we didn't have our passports. So I spent all of Monday sitting at the immigration desk, and it was crazy. Everyone's trying to get onto that list, like those last flights. I spent all day there, managed to get our passports, at least, stamped for that day. And we flew out that night. And, all of our stuff was still in Rwanda. The people we met, we had staff, of course, in the house, because you're sort of expected to do that. But that's, part of living there. And that was hard. That was very hard because, I've had training on how to deal with immigration and police abroad, but that was really tough because you have to be, again, very humble, very pleased, this and that. You're left completely to their mercy. And there's a last flight out. 2 days later was the absolute last flight out from Rwanda.
Wow.
And then the country was closed. So that's my immigration story. I've got a few police ones, but that's
wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's save the police ones for later. Then I'm still going over that and what the teacher said to you one time. But what's our other question, JP?
Yeah. So the other question we have is, imagine, when you're moving from place to place, what are 3 things you need with you to make it feel like home? And they can't have heartbeats, so no pets, no children, no parents.
You have to kill your pets to bring them?
Those are initially, that's it. Yeah.
Those are presumed to come with you.
Oh, man. Just a ball of any sort, ideally a basketball, but any kind of ball will work. A tennis ball, even a half-filled water bottle, just that you can throw around, play with, mess around with whether it's with your own kids or with others. It's just such an easy way to make a connection. Like if you were sitting across from me right now and I threw you a ball, you'd probably catch it, maybe laugh, throw it back, like instant, boom, connection. Secondly, I think this is going to sound a bit like a Tinder profile thing, but something to cook with. So a frying pan or something. I love cooking. It's my creative outlet. I don't sing. I don't play an instrument. I play basketball, but that's my other creative outlet, but cooking. And I think another thing with cooking is you'll get the theme here is connection, right? Like you can bring people in. We're doing renovations. I think I was saying that the other day. Some guys finished like a really tough part of a job at our house. And we were just sitting down to eat dinner, me and the kids. And I was like, dude, you guys want to sit down? And there's 3 kind of dirty, dusty guys sitting at the table. And our kids open up. They start sharing like they don't usually do. And it's just a cool way to connect. So I think that's like a nice power to have because it brings people together. And I'm waffling so that I can think of my third one. Yeah, geez. No, man. That's a tough one.
Well, 2 is fine, and we don't have to go. You could see one of JP's is right behind JP. Is one of the things she takes her rugs with her.
My carpets.
Yeah, and I
have
need
about
to have
15 carpets from Turkey, 1 from Nepal.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Greg needs ice, and Greg, I'm looking at it right now. I bought an ice maker.
Oh,
it's sitting on my dining room table, but yes, I have an ice maker.
Totally American. I have to have cold drinks, and ice for me is something you can't get everywhere.
It has changed my life.
Yes.
You don't understand, because my freezer never has enough space to put a straight ice cube tray so that it won't wonk, and then, so I never have enough ice, and now I have an ice maker, and I just plug it in, and in 8 In 8 to 10 minutes, I have ice for my drink. It is so fast and is so good. So I would recommend an ice maker, Greg.
Well, I can't carry those on the plane with me, but when I've thought about buying one when I get there, maybe when I'm going home to the States for a year, maybe my dad has an ice maker. Yeah. I might buy an industrial sized restaurant ice maker. I don't know, and try and take that with me. But I travel quite light. Yeah. Listen, this conversation has gone so many places. I look forward to hearing about, at some point about how your kids are thriving in school, and it might end up being a magnet school. It might end up being, I hope that they can be challenged. And I know that if they aren't in school, at least they will be at home.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. No matter what, they're going to have the best teacher traveling with them. So that's great.
Thank you both for the kind words. That's really sweet. And thank you for the opportunity to share, because I think it's stuff that's important to me. So it's really great to be able to share with you. And thanks for being wonderful hosts.
Yeah.
Well, like we said before, it doesn't matter if you are a teacher, a budding teacher, a non-teacher, you fit into the international. I'm talking about other people that are prospective guests. We interview people from all over the world, and you are definitely a man from all over the world, and your family. TCK, we haven't talked much about third culture kids, but in directly. But you are one, your wife is one, and your kids are all TCKs. So it's great to see that going through the family. We had that wanderlust, and we talked about how our families are in different parts of the world. And I think it fits so well into our overall conversation. And I think you've been an excellent guest for that. It really has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm going to say from International Teacher Podcast, thank you very much, Marijn Bergsma, for joining us today, all the way from not Haarlem, Netherlands, but somewhere nearby. I would like to thank Greg, our single guy and author of Show Up. What?
Stay for the Show. It's my new children's book.
Stay for the Show. I just know show. Stay for the Show. New children's book out on Amazon.com or wherever you find your finer books. And I'm Jacqueline from JP Mint Consulting, and I thank all of you for listening. And we'll see you next time.
Let's do some time travel. All right. What a great show. All right.